The smell of garlic and rosemary filled our small, meticulously kept apartment, a familiar comfort that had become my solitary companion most evenings. I swirled the Cabernet in my glass, watching the deep red liquid cling to the sides. On the table, 2 plates of perfectly seared salmon sat next to a wilting arugula salad. A single candle flickered, its flame dancing in the reflection of the untouched wine glass across from me. It was our 8th anniversary. It was 10 p.m., and Clara was, once again, working late. Just finalizing the schematics for the Ethelgard Tower, Leo. It's the biggest project of my career. I'm so close to locking in the partnership. I'll be home as soon as I can, I promise. Don't wait up. Her text, sent 3 hours ago, was a familiar script. I had read variations of it for the better part of a year. Clara, my brilliant, ambitious architect wife, was always on the verge of a breakthrough, always one late night away from securing our future. I was proud of her, immensely so. When we met, she was sketching designs on napkins in a coffee shop, her eyes burning with a fire I found intoxicating. I worked my steady, predictable IT job to give her the stability to chase that dream. And she'd done it. She was a rising star at a prestigious firm, the kind of woman who commanded a room with her quiet confidence and razor-sharp intellect. But the woman who now came home, usually long after I was asleep, felt like a stranger. The shared laughter had been replaced by exhausted sighs. Our weekend hikes had become her networking brunches. Our life together had become the collateral damage of her success. I tried to voice my loneliness once, a few months back. I'd suggested a weekend away, no phones, no laptops. She had looked at me with a pained expression, a look that skillfully blended pity with impatience. Leo, you don't understand the pressure I'm under. This isn't just a job, it's everything we've worked for. Please, just be patient a little longer. I felt small, my needs trivial in the face of her monumental career. So, I became patient. I became the supportive husband, the man who had dinner waiting, who managed the household, who understood. Tonight, however, the understanding was wearing thin. I blew out the candle, covered the plates with foil, and walked into her home office. It was as immaculate as a museum exhibit. Her massive monitor displayed complex architectural renderings. Books on structural engineering were stacked in perfect right angles. And on her desk, nestled in a velvet-lined leather case, was her prized collection of drafting pens. They were a gift from her firm's biggest client, Julian Croft. He was a charismatic real estate mogul, the kind of man who wore $1,000 suits and had a smile that seemed both predatory and charming. Clara talked about him constantly. Julian's vision for the Ethelgard Tower is revolutionary. Julian thinks I have the talent to run my own firm one day. He was the gatekeeper to her dreams. My hand hovered over the pen case, a sudden bitter resentment rising in my throat. This man, this project, had more of my wife than I did. In a moment of clumsy frustration, I knocked the case. The pen scattered across the polished hardwood floor with a series of sharp clicks. Cursing under my breath, I knelt to pick them up. 1, 2, 3 sleek black cylinders. 4, 5. But the 6th one felt different. It was heavier, the metallic finish colder. And where the nib should have been, there was a faint seam. I twisted it. The end popped off, revealing not an ink cartridge, but the unmistakable silver rectangle of a USB plug. My heart began to pound a frantic, uneven rhythm against my ribs. A USB drive disguised as a pen? It was probably just a novelty gift, a way for her to carry blueprints digitally. I was being paranoid. My loneliness was making me crazy. I was about to put it back when a thought struck me. Clara was meticulous about her tools. She would never use a novelty pen for her actual work. This was something else. With trembling hands, I walked to my own laptop, my sanctuary of code and logic, and plugged in the pen. A drive named JC Designs appeared on my screen. Julian Croft. My breath hitched. I clicked on it. A password prompt blocked my way. My mind raced. I tried our anniversary, 10/24. Access denied. Her birthday, denied. The dog's name, denied. I felt a wave of relief mixed with shame. I was being a fool, invading her privacy for no reason. I was about to eject the drive when my eyes fell on the name of the project on her screen, Ethelgard. On a desperate whim, I typed Ethelgard Tower. Access granted. My blood ran cold. The folder opened, revealing not blueprints or schematics, but dozens of subfolders. The names were dates. Hesitantly, I clicked on one from 6 months ago, the week she was supposedly at a conference in Chicago. It wasn't filled with architectural files, it was filled with pictures. Pictures of Clara and Julian. Clara and Julian having dinner at a restaurant I'd never seen, his hand possessively on her back. Clara and Julian laughing on a boat, the Chicago skyline behind them, her head resting on his shoulder. Clara and Julian in a hotel room, tangled in white sheets, her face flushed with a kind of ecstatic joy I hadn't seen in years. A choked, animalistic sound escaped my throat. I clicked through folder after folder, a digital chronicle of her betrayal. There were videos, short clips of them kissing in a taxi, of him whispering in her ear at a gala. Each file was a dagger, twisting in the wound of my naivety. Then I saw a document file named Our Future. I clicked it, my body numb, my mind detached, as if I were observing a stranger's life implode. It was a chat log, a transcript of their conversations spanning over a year. Julian, he still hasn't suspected anything? Clara, Leo? No, he's too trusting. He thinks I'm a workaholic. He sits at home making me anniversary dinners while I'm closing deals with you. Julian, good. The Shell Corp is set up. Once the Ethelgard commission is paid out, we'll divert our percentage. By the time her firm notices the discrepancy, we'll be in Monaco. Clara, and Leo? Julian, you'll leave him a note. Tell him you need to find yourself. The poor guy will probably believe himself. He's a good man, Julian. He's just simple. He doesn't understand ambition. He doesn't understand us. Simple. The word echoed in the silent apartment. My support, my patience, my love, it was all just simple. I wasn't just being cheated on, I was being managed. I was an obstacle in her grand design, a loose end to be tied up before she could move on to her real life. It wasn't just infidelity, it was a conspiracy. They weren't just having an affair, they were committing fraud, using her company, her position, to fund their escape. The Ethelgard Tower wasn't just a project, it was their getaway car. I sat there for what felt like hours, the glow of the screen illuminating the wreckage of my world. The shock had subsided, replaced by an unnerving, icy calm. I copied every file, every photo, every damning word onto a secure, encrypted hard drive of my own. I ejected the pen drive, reassembled it, and placed it back among the others on her desk, exactly where it had been. When I heard her key in the door around 2 a.m., I was sitting on the couch in the dark, the apartment silent. She flicked on the light, startled to see me. "Leo, you scared me. I thought you'd be asleep." She dropped her briefcase, the exhaustion on her face looking different to me now. It wasn't the weariness of hard work, it was the strain of maintaining a lie. "Couldn't sleep," I said, my voice flat, devoid of emotion. She came over trying to kiss me, but I turned my head. She frowned. "What's wrong?" "How was work?" I asked. "Exhausting. We're so close on the Ethelgard deal. Julian is a genius, but he's a perfectionist. We were going over the final material specs all night." She was a fantastic liar. So smooth, so practiced. I stood up and walked to her desk. I picked up the pen case. "You must be using these a lot then. Your fancy pens." "Of course," she said, a flicker of confusion in her eyes. "They're the best." I picked up the USB pen and held it between my thumb and forefinger. "Especially this one, right? It holds all the most important designs." I watched the color drain from her face. I saw the flash of panic, the frantic calculations behind her eyes as she tried to understand how I could possibly know. In that moment, the woman I had loved for 8 years vanished, replaced by a cornered stranger. I don't know what you're talking about," she stammered. "Don't you?" I asked, my voice dangerously quiet. "The designs for your future in Monaco? The schematics for defrauding your company? The blueprints for a life built on lies? I have to say, Clara, as an architectural achievement, it's your masterpiece." Her collapse was total. The confident architect crumbled into a weeping, pleading mess, begging for forgiveness, spewing excuses about pressure and confusion. But I wasn't listening. I was looking at a ghost. The woman I married was gone, and this person was a stranger. I didn't yell, I didn't scream. The next day, I filed for divorce. I also packaged up a copy of the hard drive and sent it anonymously to the board of directors at her firm and to the IRS. The fallout was catastrophic for them. Julian Croft's empire was built on a house of cards, and the fraud investigation brought it all down. They both faced legal ruin. Months later, I sat in our Shermy apartment, now emptied of her things. The silence was no longer lonely, it was peaceful. I had lost a wife, but I had found myself again, free from the shadow of her ambition. I was not simple, I was strong. I was a man who had loved fully and, when betrayed, had refused to be a victim. I opened my laptop, not to look at the past, but to book a trip. A solo hiking trip through the mountains, a weekend for myself. The sun streamed through the window, and for the first time in a long time, I felt the warmth on my face.